Please, we're ready. Someone already has their hand raised. That was quick. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our bi-weekly leadership masterclass call. We are wrapping up one of our cycles, and you guys are getting, in my opinion, the most successful person we've had in our industry the last couple of years. Coming out of COVID, I've watched him and had conversations and really been lucky to be a part of his network and what he's been doing. And his subject today is going to be opportunity. And this person I'm talking about, if you guys haven't seen him on the screen, is Richard Anderson. You might be sick of his name, but you shouldn't be, because he's kicking ass in everything he touches. And he's been a great example on really, how to adjust and how to adapt to the environment you're in. And he came from retail and got involved in door-to-door and had no idea what he was doing. And within a short period of time, really just started building an organization. And so, Richard, we're really happy to have you on today. I want to just give a quick update. I know that the regional meeting in Dallas just happened, and Richard and Julia and Dana were the ones hosting it and did a great job. We got more regionals coming up. So we have Southern California, September 10th, Northeast in Philly, September 17th. We have Orlando, so the Southeast, October 1st. And then we have Northern California, October 8th. So great regional meetings coming up. But Richard, how you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for the intro. Makes me smile. Thank you.
Well, I remember we talked, you came to my office. Vincent keeps raising his hand. I remember you came to my office, it had to be a couple years, 2 years ago. And you had 50 guys.
January of 2021.
Yeah, and you had 50 guys in your office. And I remember going, Richard, well, how many assistant managers do you have? And you're like, I don't have any. I'm like, how do you not have an assistant manager? You're like, nobody's ready. And I said, you probably should start promoting people. And you're like, really? And it was great. And just the next 12 months, it was just like an absolute rampage. And you still haven't stopped since. And I don't know how many offices you have now. I mean, I'm sure you're closing in on 30 or above. You became an RC and an NC in the same year. You had a child. A lot of things are going great, Richard, for you. So appreciate you taking the time today. And I know your subject's opportunity. So before we get started, Richard's going to cover a lot of information. He's talking about the bigger picture. This call is a lot about leadership tactics, whether it's recruiting, training, driving sales. Today, Richard is going to talk about the bigger picture, which, hopefully that motivates everybody. We're going to cover some numbers at the end about, just running an office, profitability, and overrides. So hang with us. It's going to be a good show today. And yeah, Richard, floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate the intro. Yes, it was January 2021 when I got to your office. I was promoting my first one or second office ever. It was Aaron. And so I was visiting there. And yeah, I didn't realize that having 50 people, you could just start promoting them. I didn't realize that. So thanks for giving me permission there, because I got back to Dallas and I started promoting people. Some of them didn't work out. Some of them were great, but it was overall a victory. So thank you so much. No, I think our business, let me put my first slide here. I think our business, let me see if I can put it as there you go. Our business has a lot of good things, but not many are as good as the opportunity. I would say the opportunity is really the product for us. And that's what I think that, people need to focus on a little bit more. And we don't do it. Sometimes we don't do a good enough job at it. So the reason I have this disclaimer, and I'll let you guys read it, I'm not going to read it out loud, is because, I come off really passionate sometimes, and I don't want that to be confused with being rude or anything. I didn't make the slide, but I like that they put the American flag there, because it just talks about, it's basically freedom of speech, right? Like you have the total freedom to look at this meeting like something you want to do or something you don't want to do. Or if I say something that you don't agree with, you also have the freedom to not be offended by it, right? At the end of the day, it's a free country. So I'm from Spain. I really appreciate the United States, and I think this is the best country in the world where people can just come and make their dreams come true. And I really believe that. And, I started in 7 years ago in Chang's office, and I was working, flipping burgers at night. And then I never quit, really. I just not a person to quit stuff. So really tuned into the opportunity. And to be honest, the opportunity is way better now than it was 5 years ago when I started in retail. It's insane. And you guys will see it through the numbers. So wanted to kind of break that down. This is how I run an opportunity meeting for my office. So if you're listening, I want you to think, and Matt, I'm going to treat you or talk to you as if you were inside of my office right now. Over the last 24 months, and I wouldn't say it if Van didn't ask, because I don't want it to come off like bragging in any way. I just got really lucky. We had great recruiting, and throughout the last 24 months, we've hired a lot of people that wanted to be in business with us and wanted to become owners. And so I think we're around 33 offices with probably 40 over the next, definitely before the year ends. And the goal is 50 by 2024, which I know we're going to hit for sure. So anyway, the opportunity is the product that you guys are involved in. And it's really clear and easy to see when people are not thinking about the opportunity, right? Because they look at things differently. So first thing to kind of talk about is, hey, so I just want everyone to think, like, how does the actual world make money, right? Great books here, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Everybody that understands that book, just the title tells you, right? Like getting advice from a rich parent or a poor parent will definitely get you into clear direction. So when I started this business, I realized Chang was 29 years old. My promoting manager was retiring her parents. And my parents that were giving me advice to that point were not the same, right? There's two ways of making money. And it's more like the active side and the passive side. It's very normal to hear now, like Airbnbs and stocks, and people are all confused sometimes. And one thing I've noticed, I'll put the slide up here. It's one thing I noticed is people really struggle finding somebody that's going to help them. Because everybody wants to be in real estate. If you ask, you want to be in real estate? Everybody says yes. But not many people are in real estate actually making a six-figure income plus. And when they are, they're not sometimes very eager to pass it down. So many courses, so many multi-level crap, so many things that you got to pay for at the end of the day. Franchises. We all want to own 4 or 5 McDonald's. I'm going to the passive side first, because it's what we all want to get to. We all want to own a Chick-fil-A. We all want to own a McDonald's, but not many people have, a couple $1 million to put down. Investments, all of these are great ways of making passive income. And like I said, one thing I've noticed is that with our business, you can create some level of passive income, but more importantly, you can find people that are actually going to help you accomplish it. Chang never charged me $1. And when I played soccer growing up, I had to pay to be on this team. Like and I also didn't play if I didn't go to training. When, I showed up at Chang's office, and sure, it's a regular job, but she was also coaching me and helping me do my groceries better, do my finances better, budget better. And I think this all comes with an opportunity like ours. Other ways of making money, 90% of the world probably operates in active income, which is only where 10% of the actual money is at. Funny enough, if you run that a little bit, say that 2 or 3 times in your head. So you can be an employee, which means you work for somebody else. So if you're working for If you're not the owner and you're listening to this call, you're an employee. There's nothing wrong with it. You can be self-employed, which in my opinion would be a little bit better, where now you own the job. For example, running an office, you're the owner in the office. You qualify for all the expenses. You also qualify for all the profits, which could be really big. We're going to go into that. But mainly the idea is you're actually exchanging your time for money. You're exchanging hours for dollars. Your dollars just keep getting higher and higher and higher as you grow. But eventually that's the deal, right? You're exchanging time for money. And the goal is to learn how to do that to a point that there's way more money from the hours that you're getting in. So I just want all of you to think while we go into this meeting, like, okay, there's two ways of making money. And I need to learn that because in school, they only teach us how to be a good employee. I'm not saying anything bad about schools, but I know schools are no longer necessary to make big money. Getting a diploma sometimes nowadays, if anybody you ask with a diploma, they really don't actually have a job with it, more than likely, right? It's more of a job hunting license than a job guarantee, getting a diploma in school. And there's nothing wrong with school. I went to school and I had a great time, but it was way more productive for partying than it was for, I don't know if I can say that, than it was for actual making money. So just, I don't know, Van, if you want to touch a little bit on this, but this is really my recap and how we go into making money in an office and the opportunity in this business, why it's so important.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think it's just a good way to kind of format how people can look at the economy. I think like when we're all participants in the economy, like we participate in some way, shape, or form. If you don't have a job, you're getting unemployment, that's still participating in the economy. So you kind of have to pick what lane do you want to get into. And then it's like trying to figure out, how do you move lanes? So even though Richard's talking about active income and starting off as an employee or even starting off as an owner, how do you move into the passive income world? And if that's something you're interested in, and then it's kind of like he'll talk about how this industry can provide a path, like it's an actual, you can actually change lanes in this, where in some businesses you get into, there's no lane changing. You're in that lane. You can make as much as you want or as much as you try to make, but you're in the lane. I think it's good to kind of show the differences and how you see people start off. I mean, Richard, you could probably agree. Some people, including myself, were very employee minded. You told me to show up at 7, I'm showing up at 7:03. You say, hey, you can leave at 6, I'm leaving at 5:59. And you see entrepreneurs around you and you eventually kind of say, what are they doing? I like the way they think. And you see the money they're making, or you see the freedom they've obtained. And all of a sudden it starts to become attractive to think like an entrepreneur. So, I think it's good to kind of show the two different sides of it and how the transitional phase can happen. So no, really good stuff.
Yeah. And all I want to highlight is really the perspective of, in school, we only learned one way of making money, which is because we were taught by teachers who were employees of the school. So by default, they taught us how to be employees. There's nothing wrong with it. Just saying, like, it's 18, 20 years of schooling, of programming in our brains. So getting into this business, I personally, it doesn't have to be everybody's story, but I had to kind of shift to think a little bit differently. And I kind of liked it. I liked it better when I heard Chang speak. It didn't make sense at the beginning, but I liked it better. So just a little bit of perspective. Let's look at, positions that our parents would be proud of, right? Because if you go to your parents, especially immigrants, if there's any immigrants on the call, and you're like, hey, mom, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. They're jacked out of their minds, right? Oh, yes, my son's, and they can go bragging to their neighbor, my son's a lawyer.
Engineer.
That's probably the third one, right? And why do they say that? Because traditionally, and then again, you got to think our parents, at least my parents, were born in the late 60s, 70s. Like, these people went through life in the 80s and 90s. People that I'm talking to, my parents. So they're looking at it from what happened in the 80s and 90s. It's changed. We're in 2023. Things are changing, right? Like, people can go on YouTube now. There was a self-made billionaire girl that was 20 years old, I think, that showed up the other day on Forbes. It's for real. But anyway, we all agree, 200,000 a year, working 40 plus hours a week, probably as a doctor, way more because you're on shifts and, stuff like that. And the job is 40 plus years. You're going to work 40 plus years. It's probably more like 50 plus years now. So you're looking at about, I like math. So you're looking at about 80 to 100,000 hours of your life dedicated to this one profession. How do you get to this doctor degree that mom and dad would be so proud of? And by the way, Larry talks about it, right? 100,000 kids are about to start med school in September, and only 100 of them will actually become doctors out of that class, because the turnover is huge. And we like the standards high, guys. Let's be honest. We don't want doctors to kind of mess it up. We don't want doctors. So anyway, these are important professions. How do you get to be a doctor or lawyer? If you ask your parents, I'm sure they'll tell you right away. You go to school, you get good grades so you can get a good job, right? And you got to go through 8+ years of schooling. And by the way, not education. If you read the word as schooling, it's different than education. At least 160,000. I know some of the areas like where Van lives, it would be 160,000 per year.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But 160,000 for you to be probably the worst doctor in the United States. And you'll earn, if you do the math, it comes out to $320,000 in debt. And obviously nobody starts at 200,000 a year, right? And by the way, these are the promoted by parents best positions in the world, positions in which you don't make money until you're way over 30. And I thought that was funny. I don't know about you guys. I don't want to be the guy that was driving the car that I wanted and the house that I wanted when I'm 50. I wanted to try to do it when I'm younger, right? And then you look at our business. Then you look at Larry's got 250 NCs. I got promoted to NC not too long ago. Van's been an NC for years. And you just do the math. And Van, look at him. He looks young. He's probably the most handsome guy you've ever met. So he's probably less than 30. And if he's 30, he doesn't look like he's 30. He's
36.
making, wow, 36, Van, and he's probably single. So
No, sorry, I'm not.
oh, no, not single. So sorry, ladies. But look, 280,000 a year in overrides. It's probably humble for what he's making because he's not a rookie NC. His local office has to by default be profitable, and hours worked, I'm sure it's actually gone down from this year and last year to where it was when he started entry level. Years work, Van, I'm going to say less than 10 years you've been in the business, or around 10.
Been an owner for 10 years. Yeah, a little over
10 years. If you ask me, it's 5. So it's way less than the other side. And I think the perspective is, did you get into any debt, Van, going into this business? Did you have to pay anything? No. As a matter of fact, he was actually making money. Hey, maybe not the most money. Maybe it was 30, 40, 50 grand a year. In the field, people now make 60, 70 a year. If it was a whole year that they're not an owner, it's just harder, guys. You're going to go through more of the pain. You're going to go through heat waves. And if you're in the South, you're going to go through winter waves. If you're up North, you're going to deal with the elements. But overall, the result, and what I remember thinking like, hey, the result sometimes is what matters. And people need to be a little more outcome focused that they are process focused, because it's what counts. So I don't know if you want to wrap up this slide, Van, but just want to kind of give people a little bit of thoughts on what we're told versus, hey, the business has great options. It's not forever, but the business has great options. Anybody can be an NC these days.
Yeah, well, first of all, I read something that the average doctor actually makes around like 78K. It's not as much like the average one. Of course, there's private practices all over the place, but there's some that make a lot more, and there's millionaire doctors, I'm sure, but it's actually, 200 isn't even the average. The other thing I'll say is that, because the word perspective is really important, we constantly are seeking approval. We're seeking approval from the people that we care about, or whether it's our family or friends. And what's interesting is, like he talked about, if someone gets into med school or law school, and that person tells their parents, and their parents say, wow, we're so happy for you. And you say, yeah, I'm going to have to put in 1 million hours a week. No one will bat an eye to that. They'll be like, oh yeah, no problem. We won't invite you to our family picnics. We won't ask you to go on this trip. We won't make you feel guilty if you got to work, because we know you're putting in the work to become a lawyer or a doctor. And your friends will probably be like, wow, Richard, what an amazing human being he is. He's trying to become a doctor. So we're not going to invite Richard out for a party because we know Richard's got to study. In fact, when Richard says he has to study, we're not going to even make him feel guilty, because what we associate with doctor or lawyer, it all makes sense to us. But what's interesting is when people go home to their friends and family and they're like, hey, I'm in this business, because explaining it's hard, right? But I'm in this business where I got to put in a lot of hours. And in 6 months or 8 months, I can get promoted to management where I'm running my own office. And the difference between law school is it doesn't cost any money. And it's, in fact, probably, if you think about studying plus you needing a job to stay alive, it's probably less hours if you combine the two. And then you get into business and it's funded. And it happens within a year. But when you say that to your friends and family, they're going to be like, you're crazy. Like, how dare you? And people look down because you're knocking on doors to get to the point where you can run an office. It's just because people don't understand it. It's not a commonly known strategy to become a high 6-figure or 7-figure earner. So I just find it interesting that because of the perception of society, that certain aspects of investing time are widely approved or widely accepted. But when you go to somebody and say, hey, I'm investing my time into this business, I'm putting a lot of work in, I'm putting in the hours. What is it? Oh, you're not becoming a doctor or a lawyer? That's stupid. Oh, you're knocking on doors? That's terrible. So I just think it's interesting because when you look at Richard's path, I'm assuming in the beginning, your parents were like, what are you doing? Huh? And then now they're like, I knew you could do it. I'm your biggest fan. Holy crap. But really, they weren't saying that. So it's kind of like you guys have to be better at controlling your own perception, as opposed to being so influenced by others. And if you're worried about the proof, I mean, there's so many examples of people that are the proof of getting to the other side. And obviously there's way more people that don't succeed at this than do. So don't think this is a, walk down easy street. But I just think it's important to kind of think about the hours put in, the years, the money invested. And that's why Richard breaks this down, because it's so important to have that perspective. So I love talking about that, because I know that so many people go home to their friends and family and it's not widely approved because those people don't understand it. And it's not a commonly known thing. So the better you get at explaining the business and protecting yourself from being influenced by others' opinions, it's going to give you a better shot at actually succeeding at this. Doesn't mean you will, but it'll give you a better chance. So that's all I got there.
No, thanks. And I know you mentioned, and we'll keep going, but I know you mentioned it's not everybody's going to make it. It's not an easy walk. Same for doctors, like same to be a lawyer. Not everybody's going to make it.
Yeah.
And so they just don't have calls like this where they talk about, hey, you guys are not going to make it. Why? Because they're not as honest, because they need your money, and businesses and schools also need to be funded. Right. And so, a little bit to think about that, but hey, our business is really simple. So I'm going to break down in my office over the last 2 years. Again, this doesn't have to be your office specifically, but I'm sure most of the owners would agree with the majority of what I'm going to ask, my people to get good at. Okay. This is what you got to do to get into ownership. Now, there are specific things, really, if I can just break it down into a box. Number one, you get into the business, you learn how to sell stuff. You teach 5 people. We teach you how to do payroll and scheduling, and we open your office. If you have to just say it in 4 bullet points. Now, that goes into a little bit more of training. So I'm going to give you guys a little more depth to that, but that's really it. You build 5 leaders, we're going to get you an office. We're going to find a way. What are some qualifications that I'm looking for? I'm looking for people to be good at personal growth, people that are actually looking for a journey in which they can grow as a human being as well, because that tells me a person can lead people if they can lead themselves. So I like book clubs. I like activities, extra team nights. I like things at regional meetings. I like people going on Sunday to a regional meeting once every 3 months, because it tells me that they're willing to spend their own time to grow. And that's a qualification for somebody that wants to be a doctor, right? They probably wouldn't have anything against studying extra. You got to get good at sales. Probably the worst and most annoying conversation the owner's going to have, or you're going to have with your team, is about selling. Figure out how to sell just enough. You don't have to be the high roller, but you got to do just enough to get by and have a good paycheck. So please, if you're doing bad at sales right now, the worst thing you can do is quit. Just figure out how to actually sell. There's 2,500 guys in the field right now. One of them is going to tell you the secret. Okay, so make a call. Hey, you have to be compliant. We work with Verizon. We work with Frontier. We work with huge businesses. They're not playing around. They will X-file you and they'll get you out. You got to be on time. You got to have a good attitude and atmosphere. These are extra stuff. I want people to save money. As a national consultant, if you blow all your money, you can be broke at a higher level as well. So we don't want that. I want you to start saving $50 a week if you're in my office, $100 a week, whatever your budget allows. But I want you to have a habit of saving. You know, yeah, I heard Larry talk. Makes probably $200 or $250,000 a day. And I heard him talk about not paying the toll and saving $3 so that he could take an extra 4 minutes, but be a good example for his children to be frugal. So I want that mindset in you. If you're in the office, you're going to have to learn how to do some recruiting. This is the most common practice since like the beginning of time, from the military all the way to any business right now. You have to understand how to teach other people and recruit, do some clerical stuff, be good at teaching and training and conversations. I use a lot of books to help me because I don't think I'm the best teacher or coach at all. I lean a lot on tools like books so that people can learn without needing me so much. And I actually think that's genius, because I'm just not the best trainer for all the people that I have in the office. There's different personalities. So anyway, some of the red flags, okay? You're bad at sales. That's a red flag. You're really bad at sales and you don't want to get good at it. You leave before your shift, or you don't show up on time. You have bad work ethic. Like what you do when no one's watching you is questionable. You're not on time. You're that person that doesn't care about compliance. You're that person that you'd rather score the sale versus actually having a compliant sale. This is a red flag. Every day of the week, any owner will take a guy that does 8 apps with 95% approval than a guy that does 18 apps with 40% approval. This is just a fact, right? So money management is also a red flag if you don't do it. Hey, some people come into the business and they're really skeptical. And I appreciate that. I think that's a sign of intelligence. But do you want to stay skeptical? Or do you want to get rid of the skepticism? I'm looking for people that they're also open-minded, a little bit got an open heart to actually stop being skeptical, because it's not a healthy thing. So you can be skeptical, but ask questions and you'll realize that this is a good business and people make great money in this business. And it's been working for years and nobody's out to get you. Some people think, well, they just want to take my money. Everybody says that we want to take your money. You probably don't have any money. Why would we want to take it? And so I'm looking for people that want to get rid of skepticism. And I think the last thing is life issues. Everybody's got life issues. Now, if you have one every week, there's a red flag. So if every week there's a dog problem, a family problem, you're the only person in your family that can take care of your aunt that's sick. You're the only member allowed of your family to take your grandma to work. If there's every time a consistent life issue, it's probably a big red flag in our office. So we don't want a lot of life issues. But this kind of recaps it, man, for this slide, and we can move on.
Yeah. So just really quickly, the word skeptical, I think, is a common thing that will happen in a place where, it can seem sometimes too good to be true. Well, what's the catch? And I always tell people the catch is it's really hard. You got to go through the field, and the field's a bitch, right? And you're, no matter where you are from, no matter what your background, it's really hard to build a team. To get good at leadership. But there's a big difference between skepticism and cynicism. And if you're a cynical person, if you're someone that always is looking at something and says, I see the bad side of it. Those friends we have, Richard, where something's happening and every time it's doomsday. Oh, it's going to be terrible. Everything's going to fall apart. Watch this. It's almost like they're hoping they're right, that the world's going to burn. You're not going to make it in our business. And it doesn't mean you can't have a job somewhere, but you got to, in some way, shape, or form, be an optimist. You got to, in some way, shape, or form, be able to identify the silver lining to things. And maybe you've been around your family or your friends, and there's been a cynical pattern in the history of how you were raised or who you hang out with. You got to shake that. So if you're a person that can't get excited about stuff because you're always thinking of the worst case scenario, you're going to be very challenged by this, because you got to be able to find the silver lining, because things are going to slap you in the face that you don't expect. And you're going to be dealing with negatives left and right. So we appreciate skepticism, but at some point that can't stay that way and remain a cynicism type thing. You got to be someone who's willing, like he said, willing to be educated, willing to be an open mind. Because I was skeptical, but I had to become someone who was open-minded. And eventually the optimistic side of myself and anybody that's successful, not just in our business, has to be a part of you. So I challenge everybody to think, are you someone who's more cynical about negatives, or are you optimistic? Because you're going to have to get excited. You're going to have to keep believing in Santa Claus, even when, shit's hitting the fan. in order for you to get to the other side. It's a huge, huge part of being successful, is not being afraid to keep fighting, even though everything seems to be going wrong, because you are able to see past it because of the people in front of you. So just wanted to hit on that.
Cool. Some things we're trying to develop, and a lot of these could be repetitive. So this would be a quick slide, but hey, people that want personal growth, people that have a coachable spirit, like people that do things, even when they do them right, they're still asking for feedback. They're, hey, man, what could I have done better in that conversation? I mean, you got to ask that so many times that Van's like, dude, actually you did great. There's nothing you did wrong. It was good. People with emotional stability, spirit of excellence. I don't want perfectionists. People that say I'm a perfectionist is typically a person that's afraid to take action. So look, and I've been there before. I know I'm hitting on a lot of people right now that I'm a perfectionist. Don't worry, but try to switch that word for excellence. Okay, level of effort versus level of results. I tell all my new guys, man, you can do 0 sales this week. I don't think you will, but I'm looking for the highest level of effort, not result. And that always pays in the business. People that are servant, these are leadership traits, team players, do whatever it takes mentality. Not what do I got to do, but what does it take to do this? People that do more than what's asked, dude. Like a very simple recipe to growth in your career is ask what has to be done and do 20% more. And you'll be fine. I promise. You'll apply this to any business and you'll be great. People that have intensity, people that are good finders. When I say uplifting, I say it's very easy to go into your office as a leader and look at things that are wrong. This person has a bad attitude, bad dress code, blah, blah, blah. What about you catch people doing the right stuff? That's what the owner, if you realize, does. We have to point a lot of negatives, but we look for the best in others. Hey, man, you look great. Way to drive the other person across town yesterday because they don't have a car. Thanks for that. Hey, I noticed you were cleaning after people's crap in the office that they left all unorganized. Thanks for that. Hey, be uplifting, be a good finder, have a good spirit. And I think all of these are super important. And going back to skepticism, Van was talking about, sometimes you just got to work on your heart posture. Sometimes you think everyone's out to get you. And it's not true. Like people don't have time for that. And it's maybe like fixing a little bit, like how do you feel inside can help. And I know you're like, Richard, this has nothing to do with the job. It actually does. It actually does. Just hard to explain on a 20-minute call, but yeah. So these are some of the things, Van, that I'm trying to look for in people. We're going to get into the numbers because you're going to see like, well, this actually pays a lot of money and you can make lots of money. But these are some of the things that are required probably for a good leader that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think the one of the most attractive things the reason I stuck with this was because I was getting mentored. You know, a job is a job, but getting mentored is a whole different experience where someone cares about like your owner is incentivized, right? We'll talk about in a second, to help you become a great leader and a great business person. And I felt that when I showed up to my office every day, that I was being sort of mentored and talked to about how I look at stuff, you know, not just how many sales I did, not just how big my team is, but my perspective on negatives, on money, on time. And I was in my meetings and I'm going, whoa, this is a whole different experience than me working at CVS. And it doesn't mean that me working at CVS, I can't, you know, make some money doing that. But remember, what's more valuable than even currency in the moment is knowledge and education on how to look at stuff and the perspective. So I love how these are all the things that are trying to be developed. And if you take this stuff that Richard's talking about, like he said, this works everywhere and not just in other jobs, but the other parts of your life, right? If you become someone who's more empathetic, more uplifting, you know, becomes more of a team player, servant leadership, emotional stability, those are things you're going to be able to apply to all phases of your life. You'll have better friendships with people. You'll be a better husband or wife, a better brother or sister, a better son or daughter. And, you know, that's how hopefully you guys can look at the developmental processes. It's not just to get promoted to the next position. It's to carry on these strengths with you that take you, you know, way further ahead in your life than you could ever get without those things. So really good stuff, Richard.
Yeah. And we're talking about money, but, you know, have you guys ever noticed that your owner never really has a bad day or doesn't tell you any of that? They probably do. They just don't let it affect the job. And that's a skill. It comes with maturity. Sometimes it comes with years, but you can force it in a little bit. You know, if your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you got to break up a fight, it shouldn't affect your performance or your ability to be nice in the office or your ability to run a good office or be a good leader. Does it affect? It sure does, but it shouldn't, right? We have to work towards it shouldn't. You know, people have kids and people have, you know, legitimate things to actually deal with. So anyway, let's talk about money. So I'm going to kind of pull these out real fast. So the average, okay, there's many people on the program here. You have Verizon, AT&T. Just please understand this number will be different for each program and you'll have to plug and play. But on average, okay, one telecom app, which majority of the calls on telecom makes $250 for the office, split 125 goes to the person making a sale, 125 stays for the owner and to pay the expenses of the business, right? Utilities aren't free. Let's say the average owner, when you open your office, the average office has 15 people. So you'll manage 15 guys. Let's say they do about one a day, which we know we want to do way more than that. One a day or 1.1 a day, 7 sales a week at a 70% approval. Okay. That means that after payroll and taxes, we're kind of rounding up. It was like 8,200, but after payroll and taxes and paying your people in the field, you're left with about $8,000. Okay. And again, if you're running through the math, it would be 250 times 15 times 7 times 70% minus all the paychecks. Okay. And left with about $8,000. And again, Van, feel free to interrupt if I don't want to make it confusing.
So no, it's all good. So basically for anyone that's listening, like you got 5G, which has much higher averages than the typical telecom. So the profit per app is a little bit less. And it's also based on churn percentages. So some offices with very low churn are getting paid more. And then you have programs like Frontier AT&T where the averages are a little lower or FiOS, but they get paid a little more per app. But the general, profitability off of 15 reps, because 7 sales on 5G would be very low. But for another program, that's about where, average is, right? So it's just important to kind of look at it from the perspective of managing 15 people. If you can manage 15 people, whatever the averages are for the program, whatever the profitability payout is, after expense, like payroll taxes, which is what you have to pay 12% every time you cut a check, just so you guys know when you're running a business. We did the math on it. 15 people roughly gives you about $8,000 in business profit before expenses. And the reason we made it 15 is because we want you guys to understand that managing 10 to 12 people, the money is not going to change your life drastically. You're going to maybe make 70, 80K, but you're not like, there's owners that don't make a ton of money because they're not managing more than 7, 8, 9 people. But when you get to that, like you'll see Richard talk about, the expenses remain pretty constant. There's some that increase, but man, the profitability, when you go from 10 people to 15 is insane. And then when you go from 15 to 20 and 25 and 30, which we'll talk about, it gets wild. So it's one of those things where we don't want to say, hey, all owners are created equal, because they're not. All managers running an office are not. There's very wide gap between incomes, but it's important for you guys to understand that 15 mark is kind of like, again, the line of demarcation of like, that's where real money starts to be made, is at 15 reps.
And I know a lot of leaders right now, here's where you're doing it wrong. You're looking at these numbers like, man, my owner's pushing me. I did way more than 7, or I did 8 and I did 9. And they're, hey, like, let us push you, man. Like, this is the average office. Look, the way we're trying to teach you to run an office is that on your worst week, you still make money. That's how so please let us push you. If you're the leader listening, let us just push you, man, because we want you to have the worst week ever in business and still be profitable. It's going to change your life. So let us push you. If you're over 7, great for you. Like, do 15. It's healthy to do that. So the average office, $8,000 a week before expenses. We're going to say the office rent, recruiting, accounting, office supplies, it's about $4,000 a week. So you're making $208,000, let's say $200,000 a year. This is pretty normal for a person running an office right now with 15 people. And I know Van's going to touch on it, but there's offices that have got 10 people. There's offices that got 30. So I've got 50, 60, 70, 80 people. I've seen up to 120 people in an office once. There's no limit, okay, based on the territory and how many programs there is right now. True Connect is blowing up. Like, we have programs that are helping. I know the charity division is helping out. People now can go into car keys. People can go into so many things that increase head count. But your expenses, the thing is, the more sales you do, the more people you manage, your expenses might only grow 5% basically on taxes, maybe a couple ads, 10%. So that 4,000 on expenses is going to stay pretty similar. Your rent doesn't go up. Man, do you get to pay more rent whenever you make more money?
After COVID, I renegotiated my building's rent, got it lower. So,
So you don't pay more expenses. You don't pay more to your admin. You can give her a bonus, but you don't pay more because you sold triple. So growth is extremely profitable in the business. And all of this, we prepare you while you're going through the field, right? Anything you
Richard,
want to touch?
yeah, so I did the math and maybe you guys can't see it. So the wire on 15 reps, the direct deposit wire, we did the math on it with the 70% approval. Just again, program by program, it all kind of adds up, is around 18,000. If you have 15 constant reps selling that are productive, 18,000, a little over coming into the business. So if you look at the 8,000 profit divided by the 18,500 roughly, the profit percentage is around 43%. So what you can kind of, your goal is to look at it and say, okay, now you can do the math, right? So Richard, you manage a lot of owners. What is the top wires right now in your organization? What were they last week? Just give me a couple.
The people are at $30,000, $35,000, $40,000.
So, and we've heard, if you were on the call on Sunday, you know, Pat Thompson's getting a 60K wire. You have Sam Rabinowitz, 50K wires, Aaron Namako, 40, 50K wires, Lamine, 35 to 45K wires. So if you do a 40K wire coming into the business times that 0.4 profit percentage, they're looking at $16,000 in profit before expenses.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. And so even if we double the expense and we made it $8,000 a week, they're still saving $8,000, which it's not that usually that high. So sorry if we did too much math for you, but it's like, this is why we get motivated, because numbers don't lie. You can have an opinion, you can think that this is that, but these are just straight numbers that, you know, hopefully you recognize and it can make sense to you.
Yeah, like guys, the goal of the business is not just to work. Like we want to work. So then you can buy your dream car. And so that Lamine bought his dream car. Like I just moved to a house that's bigger than I ever thought I would ever live in with my wife. Like life could be great. Like it's not about just staying working and not spending anything. There's a moment if you're making $16,000 a week, like Lamine, that's before his overrides.
Oh yeah.
So he's making maybe $30,000 or $40,000 a week, $1.5 million a year. If you're making $1.5 million a year, which we're going to get into, you can easily spend 250 grand on something and not have to sweat it, right? So, and this is only being an owner, guys. This is the starting line. I want everyone to look at this is not the finish line. You are training to get to this position. The day you get to ownership is the end of your orientation. Dude, a lot of people screw it up because they get there and they get comfortable, and that's the moment to actually start working. So again, it can change your life if you do it the right way. Now, there's more. Van, is there more? Can we grow more than just being an owner?
Absolutely.
So you can become a regional, and the numbers I'm going to show here, I want you to talk to your regional, because you can be on Car Keys is going to be different. You can be on a different program. You can have owners in all these other programs. It could be different. So make sure you talk to your upline regional or national about this. But here is what you need to do to be a regional. You need to be compliant. You won't grow if you're creating bad examples. Your org has to be healthy. What does that mean? There's not a lot of compliance issues throughout your org, and there's not anybody that is struggling with money. People are making good money. On telecom, your office should be over 100 apps a week. Mainly, you got to remain at least like some sort of an example, so people can come visit you, so you can keep retraining people, right? $100,000 a week on your org wire. So that means all of your offices. Van said it was 18,000, right? So if you add up you and all your promotions that you promote out, it's got to be about at least 100 for 2 months straight. 5 of those people have to be your directly promoted guys, first gens, in at least 2 seconds. What I found out, I got promoted last year. What I found out is I was at 200,000 by the time I had because people are doing so well in the field. And my 7 offices, my 5 first gens and 2 or 3 second gens I had, we were doing about 200,000 by the time I got promoted to regional. So these numbers are really hit, Van. I don't know if you want to touch on that, or we can go into.
I mean, it's crazy. Like if you're building an organization, you're generating 5 off of a regional crew. It's 5 million a year in total gross business from people that you've developed and promoted out. As we get into the next part of it, you'll see, you know, up to 10 million. There's people that have 25, $30 million organizations. It's just an insane number. And we'll talk about how that works and why we're incentivized to do so. So go ahead, Richard.
Being a regional, I don't want you guys to get confused with percentages, but just hear me out. Okay. You'll make an extra 100 grand, 75 to 150 grand extra a year. And I don't want to pass that like it's normal. in what job in the world, what doctor and what lawyer can you just make an extra $150,000 a year? By the way, against no expenses, because now you're promoting all these offices, they pay their own expenses. You might have some travel, some trips, some bonuses, but you got no overhead and you make an extra 150 grand a year. It's insane. So how it works is you basically make 1.5% from the client. So you don't actually get to charge your promotions. Don't get it twisted. The client pays you, so they don't have to get involved developing that office. You develop the office. And so the client pays you 1.5%. You get an extra 1.5 on your first gens. So you're making, plus your local office, your 100 apps, 200 apps, you're probably going to make, I'm going to say roughly between $200,000 and $500,000 a year, maybe $400,000 a year in total as a regional consultant, which is probably the most desired promotion for any owner in our business, because it is the point where your life can start to change. Now, it's not the end, because then you can become a national. And I want you to talk to your NC, because I really think we have a lot of regionals, and I don't know if a lot of regionals are listening to the call. And I love you guys, especially we got Dana, JP just got promoted. Who else got promoted, man? That I'm forgetting a couple.
I think Bud did.
Bud got promoted. Look, if you guys are listening for the regionals and also to the elite, like, you're losing money every single day as the regional. You want to get to national, because it's a fat difference. Okay. And you can ask any of the nationals, but $200,000 in org wire, which you should be really close as a regional. And you just got to have a few more offices, 7 first gens, 4 seconds. You'll now go up to 6% on all first gens, including yourself. And you'll have 3% on all downline. The average pay increase is lowballing 200 to 400,000, but I'm thinking it's more around $400,000 plus your local office, plus all of that. So easily, national consultant's going to make between 400,000 to $1 million a year plus. And typically, there's an option where you can grow beyond this and start helping with other programs and run things and make an extra, $250,000 just because you're a good example. And because also Larry's so good at sharing, and he's such a good business builder and leader for all of us. But this is easy. And I want to help all the leaders, put national as your goal, not regional, because you'll be a regional at least. And if there's any regionals listening, you should get mad and get to national, because you're losing money every day on the organization that you already have. It's insane the amount of money that, my life's totally changed as a national, and it's been so quick. So Van, anything you can touch or fill in here, since you've been a national for so many years now?
Yeah, I want to make sure. I think Austin Eldridge also got promoted to regional.
Yes, we got more.
Yeah, there's more. I know a couple of years back, I know Alex Twadi got promoted and he's close to NC. So if I forgot anybody, I apologize. I know we're at the end of the call, and I know that there's a lot of numbers put in front of you, and sometimes it's hard to grasp it because you're just trying to keep your attitude today with your trainee. But what's really important is to understand the concept of the owner that's running the office is incentivized to open you up, right? There is a incentivization structure. It's a reward structure to where you are more valuable running an office, not only to your owner, you're more valuable to the client, because you doing 7 to 10 or 12 sales, the client doesn't really feel it. But when you get into Richard's situation where you're now running a 200 app office, the client feels it, right? So when you think about the incentive structure, you are way more valuable running your own location, not only to your owner, because now the owner doesn't want to keep you as a sales rep, doesn't want to keep you as a sales manager. They want to open you up because it's such a low cost, 5 to 7 grand, and the average office is doing $1 million in sales. The overrides on opening up an office are 30 to 40K on average for a regular office. So annually, it's a return on that investment, right? So the owner is incentivized, the client is, and remember, it's way more valuable to yourself to be running your own office. So that's kind of the structure of it. And I remember when I was new, Richard, my promoting owner said, hey, this is a two-way street. Like, I need you to be successful the same way you want to be successful. We got to work together. And that clicked for me. I'm like, whoa. And when I looked at the office, I said, if I become great at this, it's benefiting everybody involved. And so, we're in a situation where, number one, we know this is the structure to grow, but our clients are waiting on us because they have the capacity, right? You look at Verizon 5G, you look at AT&T, Frontier, we filled up really quick and we're still trying to plug holes. But you look at TrueConnect, our clients have massive appetites for growth. And the only way we can fill that is by people like you guys coming in and moving up through the training program and getting into management. There's no hiring of outside managers. So we're very dependent on superstars coming in and saying, hey, if this knucklehead owner can do this, maybe I can even be as good as them or better. Because I'm a knucklehead, Richard's a knucklehead. And if a couple of knuckleheads can figure this out, like hopefully you look at it and you don't see us as this finished product where you're like, man, they're so polished. If you take a look back, and I know that there's pictures, there's proof of how we were when we were new, you would be like, wow, I can't believe those guys ended up where they are. And so, but it's all about, we know we're incentivized. And so it doesn't mean that if you don't get to become an NC or an RC or even an owner, that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful in life, because there's many other ways to be successful. So even if you really try hard at this and you do something and it doesn't work out, no shame in that, because this is tough. This is really, really hard. So, Richard broke down the numbers and stuff, and this is all obviously if you get to the other side, but it's not the higher percentage of people, it's a lower percentage. So just know that this is, for a small percentage of people that say, I want it, I'm willing to make the sacrifices, and I'm willing to stick with it, even when things aren't going well. But if you move on to do something different, the skills you can take with you, the mentality, the sort of way you approach things, the habits, those are successful anywhere you go. So hopefully when you hear all this big picture stuff, you don't sort of roll your eyes and think, oh, okay, cool, they're just saying that. No, there's people living it. Richard's living it. And he was, again, I don't know financial situation, but it wasn't great a couple of years ago when COVID started for Richard. And so what he's accomplished in the last couple of years, it's obviously, it shows Richard and what he's capable of, but it also just shows what's possible in our business. And hopefully it inspires people to say, hey, I can do that too. And that's what makes us so passionate. Even 55 minutes in, we can keep going, but we know everyone has, a job to do and their work to do today. But Richard, this is great. This is all really good stuff.
Yeah, no, just to kind of close it out. First of all, thanks for having me. This is an opportunity talk. So if it was a little bit overwhelming, it's okay, because I never thought I could make that much money either. And I know there's a lot of people listening. I just want to encourage everybody, like, man, if you're going to quit the business, most people quit everything nowadays. People quit their gym, people quit their marriage so easily. Everybody quits everything. Just quit after you make a couple $100,000 as an owner, because it's not that hard. I have owners that are not smart. You got people in the offices listening right now, way smarter than so many of at least the people I've promoted, including myself. I used to be flipping burgers. I would get yelled at that job. And so you can do this. It's not hard. Figure out how to get 5 guys, open your office, make $200,000, and then let's talk about if you want to quit, because it doesn't make sense up until that point, really. It's a great business. It's growing, and I think it's going to keep getting better. So sorry for the long talk. Thanks, Van, for having me on.
No, for sure. And, what I love about what's happening in our business today, whether it's the regionals that are going on across the country, whether it's the Sunday calls, whether it's the rep calls, or this, the access to listen and learn from people is unprecedented. Like, I would have killed to have stuff like this going through the field, because it just would have sharpened my mind faster. So hopefully, you guys look at this resources and you say, hey, it's helping me. And if it's not helping you, we apologize. But man, the access you guys have to get better is astounding. And we really believe the clients are a part of the reason why we're doing so well. The economy, in terms of how advertising's dying and face-to-face is effective, but the networking that's going on is like never before. So use Zoom as much as you can, because it'll expedite your growth. And if you have big goals, don't wait. Network faster, travel sooner, talk to people more often, because if you keep waiting around, it'll take you longer, and that's not good. So Richard, you're the man. Keep kicking ass and being a great example for us. Appreciate all you do. Everyone have a great week, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Take care.